Okay, so this is Garden Journal number 5. This week I'm going to be talking about my 4 power crops, which are the highest cost to yield ratio as well as the most health benefits for any crop that I've grown. And that being kale, beets, sweet potato, and ginger. So I'll show a couple of close-up shots of how the seedlings are doing that I started so far. And you can see where those are at. The sweet potato slips are at about 6 inches. I've got the Cherokee purple tomato is at like 9 inches already, the biggest one. And I'll show some pictures of those so you can see that. Now I'll start off by talking about how I grew those 4 crops. When it comes to the beets, I started the seeds directly outside and I put them in trays, in those little seedling trays. Let's go grab one. Like this. And I put a couple seeds per pod, and then once they sprout, I will set up the ground and loosen it nice down to about 9 inches. And if multiples grow in each pod, I just dip them into a little container of filtered water, dissolve the soil around so I can get out the single ones and plant them instead of thinning. Some people kill, 1 or 2 at a thing, but I just I dissolve them and put them all in. And I plant them, and then once they're established, thin them out to about 3 to 4 inches apart in a row, and water every 2 days except for in a heat wave. And after about 90 days, you get a big beet harvest. For beets, I use them in my own cooking for borscht. I would roast them in a big roasting pan and then cut them into slices and freeze them in Ziplocs, and they can pull them out at any time in the middle of the winter and add them to meals. And I would also juice them and freeze the juice in ice cubes. That's for the juicers and smoothie people out there. You just throw it right into your stuff in the middle of winter or spring. Then moving on to kale. How I did that was I started the seeds directly in the soil outside, so no starting mix needed. And then once they set their first leaves, then I'd thin them down to about 1 plant every foot, 12 inches. And they pretty much take care of themselves, water them every couple days, and then the second year they'll come back and they produce prolifically. If you let them come back the second year, and you notice they're putting on the flower buds, you can pinch those off and eat those. They're actually kind of like a broccoli, the buds or the flowers themselves. And then once you let them go to seed, then that's the end of that plant. So they live for 2 years and you get lots of nice little baby kale leaves the second year. For kale, I make lots of different soups, borscht, sausage potato soup called zuppa, minestrone. Use them in a lot of Asian recipes in the place of bok choy or soy choy. You can use kale like that. And salads, smoothies, green juice, just tons of applications for kale. And one thing I really love to do is saute it in coconut oil with a squeeze of lemon juice. That makes a nice side for most dishes. And then sweet potatoes, start the slips in early February, like we did here. and soak those potatoes in some water so they can grow slips. Once they get to be a few inches taller than this, maybe about 7 to 9 inches, I'm going to snap them off and put them in their own jar. And each place where a leaf comes off, each one of those nodes is where the new roots are going to come out in the water. So you let those root, and then I will, once they set little roots in their own jar, put them into a pot like this so they can get some strength and roots for a week or two before they go out into the soil outside. And you want to wait till it's nice and warm outside, like 20-degree days minimum, like late May or June before you plant the sweet potato slips. And when you plant them, make sure that you put the roots definitely deep in the soil and cover up, mound up to over 1 or 2 of the leaf nodes, because that's where your new sweet potatoes are going to set, is from the nodes under the leaves that you bury in soil. That's it for sweet potatoes. You let them grow like crazy. Feed them every 2 weeks after like July, say, with some liquid feeder, fish emulsion or liquid seaweed, and that'll give them an extra boost for a good harvest. And mound them up to 16 inches so they're nice and mounded for easy heat, and so the potatoes have lots of space to grow. And then after about 120 days, you get a huge harvest. Then, oh yeah, one thing that's important about sweet potatoes is curing. You want to make sure that after you harvest, you leave them in a space that's 25 to 30 degrees Celsius, not with direct sunlight, but with high humidity and 25 to 30 for about a week. That sets the skin, hardens the skin, and turns the carbohydrates into sugars, and that lets them last a lot longer on the shelf. So once you do that process, then they can store for up to 6 months in a cool, dry, dark place, like down in your basement in a crate in a cupboard or something. We've still had some just a couple weeks ago that were growing. That were still good to eat in the cupboard. And for sweet potatoes, for eating, we use them in lots of soups. Oh yeah, also worth mentioning is the foliage that grows on sweet potatoes. These leaves right here, they're edible and they're high in nutrients. They can be used in the place of spinach in pretty much any recipe. So once you have your sweet potatoes established outside, you can just pull off those leaves, use them in a salad, use them in a stir fry, whatever, and you got double food supply coming from that. Okay, so moving on to the ginger. Started the rhizomes, the baby rhizomes, in February. This year a bit late, started them in March. But once they get a green shoot on them, I'll get one and show you. Once they get a little shoot, you plant them in the soil and just get the shoot poking above a bit, and then it'll set roots in there. And once it's established, we'll transfer to a bigger pot. For fertilizer for those, I put in some kelp meal as a slow-release fertilizer. Sprinkle a little bit of hardwood ash to give them some minerals and nutrients, and they flourish. Give them partial shade outside if you're warm enough climate. Water them once a week. They don't need that much water, just so the soil's, whenever it looks dry, you moisten it. And then you can harvest them after 4 months, after 120 days. But if you want to have a mature ginger like you get from the store, you're going to want to bring them in after the full summer outside, grow them in your window till 11 months, and then you're going to get the real big juicy ginger. Otherwise you get these nice little baby ones, they're kind of pink skinned. And the applications for ginger, like the last video, tea, all kinds of Asian cuisine. I use them in an amazing sweet potato soup recipe, roasted sweet potato carrot Thai soup that I'll put a recipe for later. You can bake them in lots of things. And yeah. So for the crop yields for 2016, for those 4 crops, for kale it was 82 bunches. That being one of those, big bunches you get in the produce section at the store. You pay $3 or $4 for an organic one and a good price, $5 sometimes. And sweet potatoes, 53 pounds. The beets, 36 pounds. And ginger, 13.5 pounds in the year of 2016. And considering the cost of soil and water and whatever to how much that put out, definitely saving huge money in those produce areas. And not only saving money, but I mean, if you eat those 4 crops together, I'll get into the health benefits in a second, it's not only going to add years to your life, but it's going to add quality to the years of your life, because the health, the flavor, the vibrance that they add to your life. So I'll mention just a short list of some of the benefits of those 4 crops. For beets, prevents your degeneration of your retinas, so it helps maintain visual acuity, reduces heart disease, improves blood circulation, reduces cholesterol, detoxes the liver, the kidneys. It's an anti-inflammatory, so for brain dysfunction, helps improve that. Improves brain function through phytonutrients, which improve the circulation. And has carotenes, vitamin C, magnesium, iron, copper, phosphorus, and tons of flavonoids. So beets are a powerhouse for nutrition. And people who do marathons and stuff, they found that if you take like a little shot of pure beet juice, especially mixed with some green stuff, they perform 20% better. They get 20% longer or 20% faster than if you didn't have that in your diet. So it helps the circulation of blood and moving of oxygen. Then for kale, it helps with depression because it improves the production of dopamine and serotonin in your brain. It helps also with eyesight, prevents heart disease, helps with weight loss. And for nutrition, we got a huge list: vitamin K, vitamin A, vitamin C, omega-3s, iron, magnesium, calcium, folate, protein, phytonutrients, carotenoids, vitamin B6, copper, potassium, antioxidants, and 45 different flavonoids. But potassium is one of the really important things in these crops, because potassium, a lot of people's diets are low in that, and it not only prevents heart disease, but it actually is responsible for the conducting of electricity in the internal structure of the body. So for your nerves, for your muscles, and for your brain function, it's really helpful. And amazing for bone health, because calcium in kale is better than most things, like milk. People go on about calcium in milk. Kale's way better than milk. Okay, so sweet potatoes, good for heart health, amazing fiber, good for your skin health, a lot of vitamin A in there. Eye health, again, vitamin A. And it's got vitamin B6, vitamin C, vitamin D, iron, magnesium, potassium again, lots of beta carotene, and vitamin E that your body produces from a compound in there. Last but not least, ginger, the ancient medicinal plant. Lowers cholesterol, good for nausea, especially morning sickness for women dealing with that. Helps indigestion in any case, helps to clear out the digestive tract of any problem that's going on in there, whether bacterial or viral. Reduces muscle pain. It's a natural analgesic as well as anti-inflammatory. So if you've been exercising or if you've got some joint or muscle pain, reduces that. Improves brain function again, reduces gas, fights infections. Ginger's a superfood, if anything is. And for nutrition, it's got vitamin B6, vitamin B5, magnesium, potassium, manganese, copper, protein, omega-3, 6, vitamin E, calcium, iron, and zinc. The whole alphabet there. So these 4 crops together, if you combine them in your diet, you're pretty much covering every base that you'd ever need to take vitamin supplements for. And not only that, but the recipes you make from them are just fun, they're enjoyable. They're the thing I would suggest to someone who's trying to become self-sufficient and just add health to their life. Then I wanted to mention some of the experiments that I've learned a lot from, which were failed experiments this year. That was showing early on in my video, trying to do sweet potato sections in pots in the dirt instead of in water. They probably because of the high sugar and carbohydrate content and the moistness of the soil, they got rotted out, and that traveled up the green foliage and blighted the leaves. So there's good reason for doing them in water and then keeping the foliage separate from the actual potato when you start them. So those were a fail. And the microgreens in the clear Tupperware, not only did they get stomped on by our lioness cat there who was exploring, but I think that the soil being on top, you see a lot of people growing microgreens in a soilless medium because the seeds just sit on this damp thing. The soil on top, I think, not only had a little bit of mold going on, but it redirected the growth of the guys so they weren't straight up, and trying to grow them in light coming through a window rather than a vertical grow light means that they're going to be bent sideways and sitting on their side. So probably grow light, soilless medium is the way to go for microgreens for the future. And the third fail, important, the coffee cups. They claim to be compostable. This one's called Nova Compost. Something in there was leaching into the soil and was preventing the roots from growing, because I started a seedling in here that was a tomato seedling. It was really struggling. The delphiniums wouldn't start. I was wondering why. And as soon as I took them out and put them in a different soil without the cups, they took off. So there's something in here. They claim it's compostable. I don't know if it's bleached, recycled paper or whatever it is, but it sucks. Don't use these. Oh, and another thing I used this year. If you're ever a fan of Asian food, bring home your chopsticks after the meal, wash them off. You can use them to support your seedlings. Works great for the little ones. Until they get to the bamboo height. And I think that's about it. Oh yeah, and I'll show finally the pics of what I did with those last sweet potatoes. The buns that I made, they were rolls. They turned out like whole big buns. And the sweet potato pie. And that's it for Garden Journal number 5. Signing out.